Hi, welcome back to Waxing On. It's Wednesday, Classic Rock. And today I've got an album that, to me, I found it really kind of special. It's a unique album. I don't think it sold really, really well. It did all right, but it wasn't one of his biggest selling albums. The artist I'm talking about today is John Lennon, and the album is actually the Plastic Ono Band. Live Peace in Toronto, 1969. Now, at this point, the Beatles were still kind of going, doing what their thing, but Lennon was branching out a bit here. And in Toronto, they had a rock festival. It was called the Rock and Roll Revival. This was September 13th, 1969. Now, just to give you some idea who was on the bill for this one. Bo Diddley, Chicago, Junior Walker, Alice Cooper, Chuck Berry, Jerry Lee Lewis, Gene Vincent, Little Richard, The Doors. I mean, who wasn't playing on this? It was held at Varsity Stadium at the University of Toronto, Bloor Street, just west of, a few blocks west of Yonge Street. I remember going there for a jazz festival. You may have remembered me talking about here. It was the Belvedere Jazz Festival, also held at Varsity Stadium. So they were using that for a few as a venue for a few different concerts. Now, this time, one of the promoters got the idea, why don't we call John Lennon and have him come and MC this event? Well, they get a hold of Lennon's people, get a hold of Lennon. He says, why don't I just bring a band? Not going to turn that down. So the concert's on September 13th. Lennon basically puts the band together the day before when they're flying in. They already had the lineup. I mean, the day before that, 2 days ahead of the concert, they get the people assigned. They do a rehearsal on the flight over. They do a rehearsal just before the show, and that's it. Record straight out. But he had some great players, so it was a little easier for him. We look at the performers we got here. I mean, we got Lennon, Eric Clapton on guitar. Clapton had done a little work on the White Album, and, you know, he was somebody Lennon picked out to come in here. We've got Klaus Werman on bass and Alan White on drums. That was it. Yoko Ono is listed on here as wind, presence, and backing. A little more about that in a minute. It was a fairly short set, but Lennon had it recorded. Took it home after the gig, put it all together, put the album out. And it's Live Peace in Toronto. Again, Toronto seems to really center in. I mean, Lennon had been there a number of times. I think I may have posted pictures or talked about it where he had pictures of him and Yoko riding snowmobiles on Ronnie Hawkins' farm. Rolling Stones, I think it was 77, did an impromptu concert upstairs at the El Macambo on Spadina. And, you know, Stones often would use that for a rehearsal space as well. And they did the big SARS Fest we talked about, oh gosh, maybe quite a few episodes ago now in Toronto. Stones, Toronto, the Beatles, there all seems to be a connection in there. Anyways, this one, Live Peace in Toronto. The band, again, just put together for that. I don't know if they did any other albums. That was the only one I'd seen in there. Here's the set list. We've got Blue Suede Shoes, Carl Perkins' great hit. Money, an old Beatles tune. Dizzy Miss Lizzy, well, Beatles did that one as well. Your Blues from the White Album. Cold Turkey, one of Lennon's new hits. This is when he was branching out, doing stuff outside of the Beatles. Cold Turkey was one of the big ones that he started out with. And Give Peace a Chance. Side 2, a little different. Both songs are credited to Yoko Ono. Yoko contributes a lot of vocal stylings to these songs, and this takes up the whole second side of the album. Songs are Don't Worry, Kyoko, and John John. 2 tunes, the whole side of the album. Now, the last tune, John John, by the time they were performing it, I mean, Yoko's doing some vocals. They got a lot of feedback on the stage. It's kind of more experimental, but they were getting a few boos from the audience for this. It certainly wasn't what they expected from John Lennon. Clapton, not maybe what they expected from the Plastic Ono Band, not being not familiar with it. This was something new that Leonard had just put together. But they gave Yoko a whole side of the album. Now, it is available on the streaming networks. You might be able to get hard copies. I'm on the streaming network. The only hard copy I had, a cousin of mine had, and like I say, I had never picked it up. I was still stuck in the Beatles rut doing that thing, and really hadn't listened to a lot of solo Lennon, but very different from when we get into Imagine and the later albums that Lennon put out. And this one, again, there's a kind of a raw energy to it because it was just put together. It wasn't overly rehearsed. Well, obviously, we've got Clapton in there, so we can't go wrong there. Just an interesting landmark album from a time when Toronto was putting on some masterful, huge rock concerts. I mean, everybody had been there through the last few years around this time, the end of the 70s. It was really the place to go for rock. So, something to check out. Live piece in Toronto, John Lennon and the Pastic Band. Tell me what you think. Leave a comment later what you think of the album after you've heard it. It's something to experience. Anyways, that's it for Wednesday. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you on Friday when I have one more to kick off the weekend with. So till then, take care and stay safe.